again, everyone. I'm Sean McCormick. I'm your host for Beatgrass Basics, where I teach you about the basics of an acoustic guitar and how to get started in playing. If you've watched my last two videos, I've taught you about the different parts of a guitar, kind of the anatomy of a guitar, if you will. So if you haven't watched those, be sure and go back and watch those. And when you do, please like and subscribe to my channel, please. Like the video, and also leave me a comment to let me know where you're watching from. I would love to know where my videos are being seen at. So, okay, today we're going to go over your guitar pick and also the guitar strings that are used on the guitar. And we may even have time to get into one other thing, but let's start out by talking about guitar picks. Now, I would say almost everyone who plays bluegrass, especially, does use what they call a flat pick. I'll show you what mine looks like. Go. And it's usually made out of plastic or some other very dense material. This pick is called a blue chip pick, and definitely not an endorser for them. And my videos are going to look reversed. I haven't figured out how to change the setting on that. But anyway, that does say blue chip pick if you hold it up to the mirror. So anyway, like I said, you got different shapes and sizes, even different thicknesses, I should say. So, and what I mean by thicknesses, obviously how thick the pick is, and that also affects how stiff or how limber the pick is. When I say stiff, mine is fairly stiff. If you try to bend the pick, it has very little give. Now, there are picks out there that are like paper thin. Those are not recommended for bluegrass music at all. Number one, sometimes they're very hard to hold on to, and also the tone that you get with like a paper thin pick is not what you want. So, and also with a very thin pick, each time you hit the string, you'll hear what I call a clicking noise or pick noise. Like I said, it's not really recommended for bluegrass music because bluegrass is more hard driving sound. You usually hit the strings pretty hard. If you did that with a very thin pick, like I said, you'll get that clicking or pick noise. Okay, so we talked about what my pick looks like. You can also get picks in different shapes and sizes. Some picks don't come down to the sharp point. Some of them are very blunt on all three edges. Like I said, personal preference with all that. And also you have players who use a rather large triangular pick. Each side will be equal, and it has somewhat of a sharp end on each side. Some players prefer that because they can rotate the pick if one side gets worn down and use it to play with. Or sometimes you can get a little different tone regarding if you use the sharper edge versus the rounded edge. That will also affect the tone. Now, with that being said, if you're just starting out learning how to play, I would recommend going to a music store. Have them help you choose several different picks. I would say probably about 4 or 5 at least. Choose different shapes, different sizes, different thicknesses to see what's more comfortable for you. Like I said, I wouldn't recommend the very, very paper thin picks. Most picks, especially if you get Dunlop picks are made out of nylon, they will have a gauge of the pick. Like a pick that I used to use is a 0.8 millimeter. I've also used a 1 millimeter, and that's kind of exclusive to Dunlop and other picks. But and then Fender makes a pick, then they just go with like heavy or medium gauge. So again, it's all in personal preference. If you hold a pick and you like the way it feels, usually first instincts are going to be pretty good. Go with that. Use it for a while. If you don't like it, you can always change. because most picks are fairly inexpensive. You don't have to get into a whole lot of cost to get started. So, like I said, I would recommend choosing different picks. In fact, if you are just learning and you've gone out and bought a wide variety of picks, I would love it if you leave me a comment and show me a picture of the different picks that you chose, and let me know what you think of each one of them. And that way, that lets me know who's watching my videos and maybe where you're from. And also, if you have any questions at all with what I go over, feel free to ask. I'll be glad to answer any questions. Or if you have a recommendation on what I could explain a little bit better, that would be most helpful too. So, okay, the next thing we'll talk about are the guitar strings. And as most of you already know, acoustic guitar has 6 strings. One is very thin, and on the opposite end is very thick. So it goes from very light to pretty heavy gauge. And they call it gauges because of the thickness. Typically, a lot of guitar players would use what they call a medium gauge. Your bottom string will be like a .13, and your heaviest string will be a .56. And then you have the various sizes in between, all increasing in gauge from the bottom. And with string gauges, the smaller the number, the lighter the string. Most guitar string sets for bluegrass or country music, the first 2 strings, the lightest strings, are just made out of metal wire. Now, the other 4 strings are wound, what they call wound. Let me see if I can get a close-up of it. Okay. And if you ever look up close at a guitar string, you'll see that it's just a very, very thin piece of wire that is wrapped around that metal core. And typically, I would say you can find 2 different types of strings very readily. One is called bronze, or they also call it 80-20 bronze just because of the makeup of the string. Or you also have what they call phosphor bronze. Now, bronze will give you the very brightest tone in the guitar. Phosphor bronze gives a more mellow tone. Now, that's not to say that they're the only ones out there. Some people use what's called Monel wound. Will give you a much warmer tone, and it's not nearly as bright, even as mellow as phosphor bronze is. And again, that's personal preference. That's whatever you like. So experiment with those too. And also, when it comes to strings, depending on how much you play your guitar, you may have to change your strings from time to time. A lot of players starting out can leave a set of guitar strings on for a few months before you really start noticing a difference. Some players obviously more than that. A lot of people, there's a chemical makeup in your fingers called like acidity, and that's my terminology for it. So in the tips of your fingers will put off a certain oil or acidity, and it reacts to each string differently. You may put a new set of guitar strings on and it sounds nice and bright and clear, and that may only last for a couple weeks. But then you also have other strings that you can use that sound bright for a month or 2. So another thing about strings I forgot to mention as well, you also have what they call coated string. These are fairly new. I mean, they have been around for a long time, but not nearly as long as your basic strings. Now, what a coated string does is it has a very, very thin coating on it, just like the name infers. And what that does, that typically just keeps more of the grime and dirt off the string, and the string will last longer. You also know a difference in the feel. It has a very much smoother feel to it. A lot of people prefer those. Some people don't like the sound or the feel of those, so they'll go with just a regular set of strings. So again, it's all personal preference, more or less. A lot of guitar players will give you different advice. My suggestion would be take each piece of advice and kind of weigh it against your feelings on it. Best thing to do is just get started playing, and then you'll kind of gradually develop a feel for what you like. Okay? So, one other thing that if you're going to play standing up, you will need a guitar strap. And that's so you can wrap it around your shoulders. And sorry for the loud noise, I bumped into my stand here. Okay. And the guitar strap, like I said, will wrap around your shoulder. Most people wear it like this. Some people will only wear it over one shoulder. But for me, it's much more natural to wear over that shoulder. And then that way, whenever you stand up, you don't have to hold on to the guitar real tight against you to keep it in place. And like I said, if you're going to play standing up or on stage eventually, that's one thing you will definitely need. Okay, and we'll go over one last thing before we end the video, and that's something else that's very, very prominent in bluegrass guitar, some in country. This is called a capo. Okay, and again, they come in all different sizes, styles, things like that. Some capos that you see are in a spring-loaded style, very much like a clothespin. You squeeze the top of it, it opens the jaws, I guess you could say, wider, so it will fit down over the neck. I prefer this style. It's called a cradle style capo. And how that works is you can attach it to your guitar. Some of those, all you have to do is flip it up and there's a latch that comes down. But you also have on the back an adjustment screw. And what that screw does, if you'll notice, as you tighten it, this piece right there will push in and leave less space. And that's to tighten it down so that this rubber piece here will press against the strings harder. And you will hear, once you get it tightened down enough, you will hear a very clear sound on your strings. So, and that's definitely what you want. So, for example, that's what my strings sound like without a capo on. If you place the capo on your guitar, you can go down there, and I'll do this so I think you can see it as well as you can. And then as you hold it in place, if you'll tighten the screw in the back, you will gradually increase the tension against the strings. Now, once you're doing this, if you hear a sound like this, that means it's not tightened down enough, because you want the strings to sound very, very clear. So you can do that by just play that string, and as you tighten it, it will sound much, much clearer. Now, as soon as it sounds clear, that's when you know it's time to stop. You don't want to tighten it down too much, because it puts a lot of pressure on the capo itself, and also can push into the neck of a guitar. Sometimes, if you aren't careful with the type of capo that you have, it will leave some markings on the back of your guitar neck. So, and one other thing about a capo, and we'll get into this more later whenever I start teaching you how to play. The capo is very useful in bluegrass music because you can learn 3 basic chord shapes and be able to play the same song in what you call several different keys. Little music theory, I guess you could say. Strumming the strings open, and then if you put the capo, or some people call it a clamp, and you tighten it down there, it will what's called raise the pitch of the string, or make the string sound higher It does sound higher in pitch, and each fret raises it basically a half step each time you move the capo or the clamp down the neck. So you noticed how it sounded here. Okay, if I move that down, I always call it down because it's moving it down toward my body or the body of the guitar. So, and then if I tighten it down, this is what's called the second fret, because it's the second space that you come to. If you'll listen, you can hear that the tone or the pitch of the string is higher than before. Okay, so let's go ahead and stop there. And next time we come back, we'll actually start on how to get started on playing a guitar. We'll try to make our first chord, so be sure and come back for my next video. I'll probably get that posted in just a couple of days, so be sure and come back and join me again. Again, my name is Sean McCormick, and you've been watching Beagrass Basics. If you have any friends that you think would enjoy this video, please share it with them. Like I said, please leave me a comment to let me know where you're watching from. Yeah, or if you want to share a picture of some guitar picks that you found and tell me which one you like and maybe some of the reasons why. I would love that. And if you have any questions, of course, feel free. Be sure to like this video, and please, please, please subscribe to my channel. That lets me know that I've got quite a few people watching my videos, and tells me that you're enjoying what I'm doing, and so that I'll continue making these kind of videos. So for now, I'm Sean McCormick, and thank you for watching Beagrass Basics.